Here's a visual image evoking the rich tradition of oral storytelling in ancient Greece, a fitting backdrop for a journey into the lost legends that predate Homer's poems. In today's episode, we explore tales older than even Homer's epics, circling back to an age where memory and myth intertwined in the oral tapestry of archaic Greece. But first, let's ask, what exactly do we mean by lost? In the context of ancient literature, the term lost often refers to works that haven't survived in their entirety from antiquity. We may have fragments, titles, summaries, or scattered reference, but the complete text remains unrecovered. The reasons for this are manifold. Ancient texts were often written on perishable materials like papyrus or wooden tablets that decomposed over time. Others were lost due to the neglect or destruction associated with the decline of classical civilizations. And sometimes, despite the best efforts of scholars, the gaps in our collective knowledge simply remain. Let's now dive into the captivating world of those myths and legends that time and circumstance have kept from us. And here we come upon a concept central to our discussion, the epic cycle. This wasn't just a single poem, but a collection of ancient Greek epic poems, all sharing one common thread, the narrative of the Trojan War. These poems, composed in the traditional dactylic hexameter, expanded Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, filling in the gaps and adding new layers to the Trojan saga. They formed a sort of companion piece to Homer, enriching and expanding his foundational work. Now, sadly, not a single one of these epics has survived in its entirety. What we know of them comes from scattered fragments, indirect references, and summaries by later writers. Some of the most prominent members of the epic cycle include, first up, Cypria. Imagine it as the prologue to the Trojan War. It covered the origins of the conflict, setting the stage for the grand events that Homer would later immortalize. Unfortunately, all we have of Cypria are mere fragments and accounts of it by later writers. Then we have Ethiopis. This epic takes the narrative forward after the point where Homer's Iliad leaves off. Key events like the arrival of Penthesilea and Memnon and the overall fate of the Ethiopians in the war are recounted within it. Once again, only bits and pieces remain, leaving us with tantalizing glimpses of what once was a complete narrative. Next, the Little Iliad. This epic shifts focus to the aftermath of the Trojan War, particularly the journey of the Achaean fleet and the troubles they faced on their way home. The sack of Troy itself was also part of its tale. Then the sack of Troy. As the name suggests, this epic centered around the actual sack of the city, offering a vivid account of the battles and sieges that led to its downfall. And finally, Nostoi, also known as the Returns. This epic chronicled the journeys of individual heroes as they made their way back home after the war. It would have been a compelling look at the aftermath of the Trojan War on a more personal scale. It's important to note that while these 5 epics are generally considered the core of the epic cycle, other poems like Telegony and the like were also attributed to this broader tradition. It's believed that these cyclic poets composed their epics between the 8th and 6th centuries BC. Their works built upon the foundations laid by Homer, delving deeper into the myths and characters that had already captured the Greek imagination. However, it's crucial to remember that these poems weren't solitary creations. They were products of a rich oral culture, likely shaped by local traditions and the creative interpretations of countless bards across generations. The idea that a single author penned these epics is a modern construct that doesn't align with the reality of ancient Greek literature. Instead, these works evolved through a dynamic process of collective composition and transmission, reflecting the shared heritage and artistic contributions of numerous storytellers over time. Now, let's turn our attention to another significant vein of ancient Greek mythology, the Theban legends. This cycle of tales, separate from the Trojan saga, was equally important in the broader context of Greek mythology. The Theban cycle consisted of 4 major epics that together formed a rich tapestry of narratives centered around the city of Thebes. These cycles are Oedipodeia, recounting the story of Oedipus from his birth through his tragic rise and fall as king of Thebes. The Thebae, detailing the conflict between Thebes and its allies against the invading forces of Argos, a pivotal moment in Theban history. Epigoni, focusing on the aftermath of the Thebaid and the repercussions of the war for future generations. And finally, Alcmaeon narrating the lineage of Alcmonius and the heroic deeds of his descendants. These Theban epics played a crucial role in shaping Greek mythology, laying the groundwork for stories that would influence playwrights like Sophocles and Euripides, poets like Stasinus and Pindar, and later Roman authors such as Ovid. Moving on, we come to the intriguing topic of who actually composed these epic poems. We tend to think of epic poetry as the product of individual genius, a singular voice crafting grand narratives. But in the realm of the epiccycle and the theban cycle, the reality was more communal. The poets responsible for these works are often referred to as cyclic poets, a collective term encompassing several bards active between the 8th and 6th centuries BC. These poets didn't just create original works, they also compiled and adapted existing tales, preserving and transmitting ancient myths across generations. Some of the more prominent cyclic poets include Octinus of Miletus, Lesches of Pyra, Eumelus of Corinth, and Aegeus of Trojan. While Homer holds a unique place as the presumed author of the Iliad and Odyssey, he too is sometimes grouped among the cyclic poets, either as a late representative of the earlier oral tradition or as a precursor to the epic poets that came after him. The exact number and identity of the cyclic poets is a matter of scholarly debate, reflecting the fluidity and complexity of ancient Greek literature. Looking beyond the epic cycle and the Theban cycle, there's even older material to consider. According to classical tradition, figures like Syagrius, a legendary early poet, were credited with composing Trojan epics even before the formal epic cycle took shape. It's believed that Syagrius and others like him sang of the Trojan War during the Archaic period, drawing from a much older oral tradition that stretched back to the Mycenaean era. Their work served as a foundation upon which later poets like Homer and the cyclic poets would build. One interesting figure in this context is Eugamon of Cyrene. According to tradition, he is credited with writing down and preserving older versions of epic tales, including the Telegony, a poem about the ancestry of the Trojan hero Aeneas. However, it's important to note that Eugamon's work, like much of ancient literature, was likely a continuation and adaptation of existing oral stories rather than a completely original creation. As we delve deeper into this rich tapestry of ancient Greek literature, it's essential to keep in mind that the concept of authorship in the ancient world differed significantly from modern notions. Poetry was often seen as a collaborative art form, passed down and refined by generations of storytellers. The idea of a solitary author, the sole creator of a literary work, is a relatively modern concept that doesn't fully capture the essence of how ancient Greek literature, including the epics, evolved and developed. To understand the scope of this phenomenon, imagine yourself in the shoes of a scholar like Johann Winckelmann in the 18th century. You're surrounded by the remnants of ancient Greek poetry, piecing together fragments and summaries to get a glimpse of what once was a vibrant oral tradition. It's a daunting task, like trying to reconstruct a mosaic from a few scattered pieces. Your perception of ancient Greek literature is inevitably shaped by the gaps in your knowledge. In this context, you might be inclined to view the works that have survived intact, like the Iliad and Odyssey, as cornerstones amidst a sea of loss. You marvel at the fact that these epics have come down to us in their entirety, offering a window into a world that existed millennia ago. This realization can lead to an almost reverence-like awe, making Homer's epics seem like monumental exceptions in a landscape of oblivion. However, as our understanding of ancient Greek literature deepens, we begin to recognize that this perspective, while understandable, is somewhat limited. We start to realize that the Iliad and Odyssey, while undoubtedly significant, are only two parts of a much larger picture. They stand alongside other epic poems, some now lost, forming a rich tapestry of ancient storytelling. So the next time you find yourself contemplating the vastness of ancient Greek literature, remember that the true treasure lies not just in what we have preserved, but also in the echoes and traces of what remains lost. In those fragments and tantalizing glimpses, we find a deeper appreciation for the richness and complexity of ancient Greek culture. Now, if you're interested in exploring further, I encourage you to visit a website where you can engage in discussions about classics, mythology, and ancient history. And here's a relevant post on the topic from the community. On RR Classics, a user posed the question, what are some examples of Homeric poems that were lost? Sparking a fascinating conversation. User Alexia7089 kicked things off by asking whether there were any examples of poems or epics that were lost, meaning not surviving in any form. They cited the many tragedies of great poets like Stasinus, Sappho, and Pindar, whose works have mostly not survived. User Sphinxes responded by mentioning the works of Stasinus, highlighting how his tragedy on the Argonauts has been reduced to a mere fragment and indirect references in later works. Another user added that the Thebaid by Stasius, a key part of the Theban cycle of poems, is also lost, leaving us without a complete version of his epic poem. And here's a thought-provoking comment by user Archaic Greek. There is strong linguistic and archaeological evidence that the myths and even the oral tradition were around during the Mycenaean period. Achilles appears in Linear B as a personal name. Some Homeric descriptions appear in the Bronze Age. At the same time, the oral tradition continued evolving well into the 8th century BC, before any standardization occurred. This perspective suggests that the myths and stories attributed to Homer might have been part of a much longer and broader tradition, stretching back to the Mycenaean era and continuing to evolve until Homer's time. If you'd like to participate in these discussions or learn more about ancient Greek literature and history, I highly encourage you to join the community. And so our journey through the realm of lost oral legends that predate Homer's poems comes to an end. From the epic cycle to the Theban cycle, we've explored a rich tapestry of narratives that have echoed through time, leaving behind fragments and memories in their wake. These tales, once staples of oral tradition, have become cherished remnants of ancient Greek literature, offering us glimpses into a world of myths and heroes. While the silence of the past may have robbed us of hearing these stories in their complete form, it's in the fragments and echoes that we find a deeper appreciation for the enduring power of storytelling. As we reflect on these lost legends, let us celebrate the spirit of oral composition that gave them life and the countless storytellers who kept these myths alive for generations. Their legacy lives on in the tales we still tell, reminding us of the timeless allure of ancient Greek literature. Before we part ways, I want to hear from you. Which of these lost legends resonated with you the most and why? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I value your engagement and look forward to reading your perspectives. If you found this journey through ancient Greek mythology insightful and entertaining, please don't hesitate to give this video a thumbs up and share it with fellow enthusiasts of mythology and ancient history. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring the world of mythology, and I'll see you in the next video.